Hey, for all my iTunes, Spotify, and radio listeners, stay connected by subscribing to the podcast at www.livingwithlyme.us for great added information and details on the launch of Pursue Wellness, an integrative approach to health. Living with Lyme podcast guests may be discussing very controversial topics. The information contained in these podcasts are from the guest's personal experience and their own opinions. These podcasts are intended for information only, and the opinions expressed are solely the guest's own. Please discuss treatment options with your personal healthcare providers before changing or adding treatments.
Welcome to Living with Lyme, the podcast where we educate, advocate, and collaborate about Lyme disease. Hear from experts as they share reliable information about how to live with Lyme disease. And now here's your host, nurse practitioner, Cindy Kennedy.
Hi, everybody. This is your host, Cindy Kennedy, and you are listening to another episode of Living with Lyme. I hope you're all doing well, and I hope that your days are treating you as well as can be expected. Today, we have a wonderful guest who is going to teach us and talk to us a little bit about her health journey, and what she does. Erin Elizabeth is a longtime activist with a passion for the healing arts. She works working in that arena for a quarter century. Quarter century, for anybody that can't do the math, is 25 years. Her site is Health Nut News, and it's not very old. It's only about 4 years old. But she has reached the top 20 in natural health sites worldwide. She's an author, a public speaker. She's recently done TV and film programs, and her original work has attracted international media attention. She has a very small intro that she gave me, but I'm going to tell you some more about her right now. She is a Lyme disease survivor, which is so important for us to hear. She was a successful model. She is gorgeous for all you people that look her up. She is also a hurricane survivor. She has stories of trees that have fallen and tried to kill her. She is an amazing lady. Her website has been rated 9.8 out of 10. That 0.2%, I'm not sure where they are, but let's go get him or them. Erin runs raw food retreats. She's going to tell us a little bit more about that. And she writes about natural remedies, health, fitness, beauty, news, and certainly my favorite topic are pets. She also offers her free book. If you go to her website, healthnutnews.com, her free book is In the Limelight, and it's called My Healing Journey. So I'd like to welcome you, Erin. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. It's very exciting to meet you and talk to you.
Thank you, Cindy. An honor to be here. Thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I've listened to you
Thanks for that kind intro too. It was so sweet. So I love it.
Oh, well, you know what? You were very humble by just a few short lines here. So I wanted to make sure I dug a little deeper so that we could learn a little bit more about you. But I have to start at this beginning, this whole thing. You have been such a hurricane survivor. And has that been in the latest years, or is this since you were younger?
Well, I've lived down in Florida since probably December 2003 or January 2004. So I've been through pretty much all the storms that have hit Florida, because if I move, then they seem to go follow where I go. So I lived in South Florida 04 and 05, and we went through all the bad ones, even Katrina, which of course wasn't nearly as devastating to us as it was to New Orleans, but it did go through South Florida, and Wilma, which pretty much took my house. But I also had been through a tornado in '91 in Springfield, Missouri. I know you and I were speaking about the city Springfield earlier, but before we went live. But with Springfield, Missouri, I lived there. Was in college, but home from college, and a tornado did take our house, our neighbors' homes, and our dog and cat, and so I was very fortunate to survive that too. So I suppose it's been kind of lifelong.
Wow.
We joke, family, our struggles with the wind, but yeah, fortunately, We did all the humans survived that, though we were very sad to lose our pets and our neighbors, our humans in our family, and very sad for our neighbors who had passed. And then, so people will sometimes say, I'm not sure why you and Dr. Mercola, my significant other of 9 years, why we live, on a barrier island. But I say, look, I lived in the middle of the country with no ocean, no nothing. And I was hit by this freak C4 tornado. So it really doesn't matter where you are. I figure that you can have storms hit you anywhere. So you just have to make the best of it. So yeah, we were hit twice in the last year here, but we rebuilt both times and had to literally start from the ground up rebuilding the floors are okay, but the wall ceilings were ripped out and replaced after Hurricane Matthew and Hurricane Irma, which hit us 11 months apart in less than a year time. And we were almost made landfall. I mean, it made landfall for both of those right where we live. So in Volusia County. So yeah, but we made it. So that's the good news. And we're all rebuilt. And of course, crossing our fingers that this season will, which we're in starting hurricane season, will be more mild season, though, with all the weather changes out there. It's, it's hard to say and hard to predict.
Oh,
so.
It's hard to believe that, it happened to you on multiple occasions. One is bad enough, but, you've had a tumultuous life, so nevertheless, the hurricane factor. But I know that you talk about your Lyme journey in your book, In the Limelight. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? When did you get sick, and let's talk about how you got better.
Sure, no problem. So before my family had lived in Missouri, we'd lived born in Chicago, but lived in Indiana. And so we were camping. I was going on my 8th grade camping trip. So this will date me, but so it would have been 1984. And I just graduated 8th grade. We went on a trip. I think my folks were even chaperones. I kind of remember them being there. And we had little, tent cabin, makeshift kind of tent cabin things. It was pretty nice, actually, that they had at this particular campground. I thought for all the just kids staying. I mean, we had bunk beds and had the girls in the rooms and the boys in the rooms. But anyway, long story short, I had a tick on the back of my leg. We did wear long pants even back then to try to avoid ticks. But I think in 84, they were not nearly as familiar about Lyme or as careful as we would be in modern day. So I had it on there, and I remember the counselor, my folks weren't around, but maybe they were only there part of the time. But the counselor, he tried to just take it off the back of my leg because I noticed at some point changing or something. So we don't know how long it had been there. I think back when you have, young teens, I don't even know if we showered there or just wait to go home after the weekend for our showers. But yeah, I was sick after that. And because I'm 5'10", I think, and was pretty tall at the time, that they said it was just growing pains when I would get these really bad pains in my joints, throughout my body, and even muscle pain, and digestive issues as well. But after I had been adopted by my folks at 3 months, I was vaccinated in January, severe cold weather, Chicago, and I'd had a vaccine. What they even will admit now was a vaccine injury, which even my mom, who for the longest time thought it was coincidence, will admit that all the shots and having thimerosal and the DPT, or now known as DTaP, which would be diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, that I had administered with the thimerosal, which is a mercury preservative. And we don't know that I wasn't double vaccinated from where I was for the first few months of my life. That I think that kind of set things off for me. I had seizures starting then, and I had a high fever, and actually the priest was even called because I was hospitalized. I think it was 7 days that it lasted before the fever broke, and I was vomiting, a lot of seizures, but then that stopped, and unfortunately they continue to vaccinate. But I think since I was so sick at the time they vaccinated me, now pediatricians hopefully wouldn't do that. I just had a really severe reaction. But fast forward then to after 8th grade, when that tick bit me, I don't know if it's a question that my Lyme literate medical doctors are Dietrich Klingart and Lee Cowden are my personal physicians. I'm very lucky to have these doctors as our friends, kind of at my fingertips. fingertips. And I think I talk about them in the book. And there is some school of thought that would say that everybody at some point or the other has been infected with Lyme. And I know that's a very controversial topic, but some may be more affected than others. But I went for years from 1984 until 2000 and would have been 2012 that we finally did a Western blot test, and I made the connection, but I had done the ELISA test a couple times because when I would go in with symptoms over the years, usually of really bad, your classic symptoms, joint pain, fatigue, muscle pain. I would even get visual snow, just all the some of these classic Lyme symptoms. They would do an ELISA test, which is like $50 or whatever I think the price would be, and say, this is that's negative. You don't have Lyme, and these were just more conventional doctors. So finally, we did the Western blot test through IGeneX in California, and that came back positive without a doubt. And even I think my titers were still high, so it showed that I had not only Lyme, but some of the co-infections as well, most of the the Babesia, the Bartonella, and all those. And and then I kind of had an answer to what I had so much of most of my life and not had a name for it or known. So, and I think I was in denial at first that I thought I had to have those two doctors look over the results and then a couple other Lyme doctors, and they said, yeah, it's positive. And I just said, I guess I was so in denial because we had ruled that out so many times. Even I think they did one in the 80s when I was still a kid growing up and told us I didn't have Lyme, but they never did the Western blot because I think it's sad. And I wasn't tested immediately afterward, which maybe it would have shown positive for the ELISA test. So.
Yeah, that's kind of a topic that everybody feels comfortable saying, yeah, I know about that, because a lot of people do go through that, and it's really great that you were able to finally get a positive reading so that you could go on to, pursue a health journey. And, you tell me, you had two of the most excellent docs helping you. What seemed to work for you?
I would say each person is different. And I know that some people have great results with antibiotics. I had been on them starting at day one when I was born, very sick. My birth mother had I guess, understatement of a really bad pregnancy. So it was not a healthy pregnancy with me. And so I was hospitalized for over 2 months and on antibiotics starting from day one of my life. And honestly, most of my childhood, which probably didn't help things either, but that's what the pediatrician did back then, was just continually over and over again put me on antibiotics. So, and severe allergies, but they would say upper respiratory infections. So I didn't go the antibiotic route. For me, I would say that I do in my book, I give my whole protocol, although of course I would say someone would want to consult with a Lyme literate medical doctor before, deciding what protocol they would do, which I did. But I list my protocol, but it was a lot of it was probably the herb. I know it was the herbs that helped me. And I think there may have been one or two compound prescriptions in there, but otherwise I just went the natural route because I figured I'd been on antibiotics so much of my life that for me, with the gut issues I had, that it was that just wasn't for me. Although I understand that works for many, that's many people go that route, and I totally respect that. But just for me, I decided not to. So,
well, you know what? I think where you were in the process, I don't think antibiotics would have been the right choice for you. It had embedded itself in so many other areas that antibiotics are great in that very early phase. But once someone gets as sick as you got, and for that length of time, you really need to do it in a different route. So I think that, for most people, that is the best choice. So I'm glad that helped you. Are you feeling pretty well these days?
Yeah, last year, it seems like it's always a journey for me. And I don't know whether it was, hurricanes, rebuilding. We were evacuated. We couldn't get to our house because the road we live on crumbled into the sea for 21 days. So I don't think people, because it didn't hit all of Florida, or have an impact on everyone. And also there were so many worse storms like in Puerto Rico with Maria. But I think people don't realize how bad it was in our area. But I think though that set me back, or set me a few steps back, and I'm always open to that with my audience. A lot of them are, we'll say Lyme survivors, and I talk very openly with them. So last year, they found out that I was it last year? Yeah, I guess it would be not even just about a year ago, a little over a year. I was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is crazy because it's hereditary, so you'd be born with that. And I had it wouldn't be tested through blood work. I went to the only specialist I know in the state of Florida who's about to retire himself. And Ehlers-Danlos is with where I'm 5'10", very lanky, again, classic, your classic case, although I don't like to label myself with any of these things. But it's basically where you're extremely hypermobile. And I had classic symptoms starting to show up. And I think after probably the second storm, would have been probably it was just under, because the storm would have hit a year next month. So just under a year ago that I was diagnosed, or after, I guess, whatever. But there's too many storms. So anyway, I went in and he said, you should ask you must have it in your family. And I explained I'm adopted. So immediately I called my birth mother. She's a doctor. So she's like, no, you don't, there's nobody in our family that has it. She was familiar with it. No one had it. And she's blamed it. She says, go call your birth father's family. It's got to be his fault. So she blamed it.
Of course.
So, and it really was. So yeah, she says, figures. So my biological father, I don't know if he does, but, because we don't really, he's got his own family now, but I called his son, who I know, my brother. And the first thing out of his mouth was, I was diagnosed with that. I thought I told you. So, but I didn't grow up with this family. So I just don't know much about my medical history. So,
right. That can have some cardiac complications, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they immediately sent me out actually the next morning, because it was kind of the end of the day when I got in for the exam. So they didn't send me to the hospital or anything, but the next morning they did do if my brain is working today, but I've suddenly forgotten when they do an echo. Thank you. So they did an echo immediately and saw some mitral valve prolapse. And so I have to get him every 6 months now and be watched. But it's interesting as I look at some of the groups of, I just call it EDS, which is easier, Ehlers-Danlos. And it's unfortunately not as easy to, for people to remember or pronounce as Lyme would be. And everybody knows Lyme and they don't know this. But I was diagnosed with classic type 1 hypermobile. And I do think that it's interesting in the groups that I'm in. I see that a lot of the people with Ehlers-Danlos have been diagnosed with Lyme. I mean, it'd be definitive, indisputable, where their blood test is coming back positive, like mine. So I think that's where I am always curious if everyone has at one point or the other not been exposed to Lyme, and maybe some people are sick for a shorter time or they're just asymptomatic. I mean, I know people who are Lyme experts who are asymptomatic, but yet their test is positive. So, but I definitely feeling better than I did back then. I had complete brain fog, but also again, another subset of a group of I've noticed are diagnosed, or maybe they just find out more than just most people in society. I also had implants. So the only surgery I've ever done is I got saline implants, and then I did do another surgery to remove those. And it's interesting how prevalent Lyme seems to be among those women that have, had implants and had them out. So you wonder which comes first, I guess, the chicken or the egg. And my thought is that there are many women, and I don't judge if they have maybe after they've had several children or whatever, they may have saline or silicone implants with no problems. And so that's awesome. But sometimes I think that the Lyme, that group of women who would already have Lyme and maybe not even know it, that first it could make some of their symptoms manifest, and also they may be more susceptible to the implants than somebody a woman who could get them and have them. She's maybe 70 now, and she's had them since, she was in her 20s or 30s after her children, and she's never had a problem and never changed them out or anything. So for me, I knew that was part of the process, was to get those implants out. So yeah, I know it's it's like this crazy complicated journey between, implants and storms and all that kind of stuff, but and vaccine injury. But I see that so often with the Lyme patients who write me that some of them maybe didn't have any of those other complications, they were extremely healthy, they were bitten, and then they've been sick ever since. It can be different with each person, but yeah, I've gone through my struggles. But I think the first thing that helped the most once I got the Lyme diagnosis in 2012 was to heal my gut and switch my diet. And I think that diet also played a big part in it. And it's hard to say because I did so many things at once. I went on a protocol, but also, and I have to practice what I preach, because sometimes if I'm traveling, or I will fall back on a few old eating habits. But for me, I think cutting out many of the grains that I was eating, and the sugar, even though it was organic or locally grown or locally made, but it still had maybe processed organic raw sugar and, locally baked bread or whatever. I cut that out, and I found that helped because I think that yeast especially was just feeding my body, and probably I know that I had a totally leaky gut syndrome and everything. So fixing that was a big part of healing with my Lyme journey. So,
if you make a list of everything that has gone on with you, and then you look at, basically a big Jenga pile, and you start removing all of the structures that were stabilizing, it's amazing that you are where you are today and feeling as well as you do and doing as much as you do. So you have a place, you have a purpose, and you just rock it, girl. So you just keep on moving, because there's more to come. I have a wonderful plate from a friend that says the best is yet to be. And, you are today what has happened to you in the past. So everything that has really tried to break you has made you stronger. Don't you believe that?
I do. Yeah. There was I saw David Duchovny recently said the same thing, but I like to have a positive attitude, definitely, and no doubt about it. But he has a sense of humor about it, which I could appreciate. And he said, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And he said, or gives you a secondary infection. So I thought that was kind of, that was kind of cute. And I had to laugh at what he said, but it was cute. But that I do believe that that's made me what I am today, and going through these. And I know that though, and some of it was my own, like I feel for people so much when they will write me and tell me about they, like, again, maybe they're on a trip, they've been bitten, they've been hospitalized, whatever it might be, if they just had a tick bite, or now of course, Dr. Klinghardt talks about even mosquitoes or other ways of transmission. But I feel for those people. But even with the implants, we are told, when I did that, I think we're told that it's safe, that if you go with saline, that you're going to be all right. And I do feel for women who have had children. One of the things I want to do, we're making a documentary on something else that I'm doing with a company in Los Angeles, but I would like to do one even on kind of being a guinea pig, though I've done it before with stem cell. I've done platelet plasma. I've done stem cell therapy. I have even done, which I would not recommend ever to anyone, doing the amniotic fluid from Healthy, because I'll throw all this in. Then I had an accident too when I was traveling in Nashville. And so 3 fractures, but I did the stem cells, did a platelet rich plasma. I've done the amniotic fluid from healthy donors of healthy deliveries of C-section babies, but I wouldn't do that. That made me really sick. But I think that now, with things, especially for Lyme, I would say Lyme's is kind of, sorry, an old, I tried to say maybe Lyme survivor, but Lyme's kind of became a habit for me I call myself a Limey. So
that's okay. That's a good term.
Yeah.
That's a good term.
For the Limeys out there, I think that it is, that still through their lifetime, sure, there are many Limeys I know that have had children, they're survivors, and maybe they get implants out, or all different kinds of reasons, or they really are not happy with their self-image, and maybe they've recovered, but they don't want to do. And I wouldn't really recommend them to anyone, just because, again, many people could be fine. But I'd kind of like to do one where I would do a fat transfer, which I know sounds crazy, but since I think you said I could be open on this, I'd like to take a little fat from my thighs and then put them in the breast to, and I know it sounds crazy, but just to show women that there are alternatives I mean, there's so many alternatives to doing, I think what what people may think are safe or effective, and but may not be for people who have or are Lyme survivors. So I think that. And the other thing I learned when I was out at Lee Cowden's in Texas was one of the women who ran the place where he was working. He only goes in there a couple times a month. He travels around the country, but this was a particular wellness center with medical doctors and NPs and a couple maybe a DO and a few nurses, RNs. But she said, I think it was when it was my first trip there, after I had, not too long after I'd been diagnosed, I said, well, I can't wait, because I did go with that old conventional thought process where I said, I just can't wait to, be better. I can't wait to just get this, take my herbs and everything. And I said, I just can't wait to get back to where, because there have been times where I felt very healthy in life. And I said, I just can't wait to be back to normal. Whenever normal was, I just can't wait till we're finished with protocol and I'm back to normal and this is over with. And then I just go on with my life, and she's like, well, and I think this was good advice. She said, and she had been, is a Lyme survivor, where she said, and what I have to remember is, because I'm the oldest, adopted the oldest of two parents who are also the oldest in their families, of big families. And I think we were always where we're kind of made to be achievers or overachievers and work too hard, and this Irish kind of thought process, whatever. Maybe it's in every, heritage, I'm sure has that, especially firstborns, I feel. But, I realized that, wow, first of all, I need to slow down, and I still tell myself that. And the other thing is, she said, it can be kind of a lifelong maintenance maintenance. It can be lifelong maintenance. It doesn't have to be Lyme. I think it's the same if somebody had cancer, that God forbid, then they survive whatever their treatment course they make, but then they say, oh, thank God it's gone. And then they go back to eating pizzas, probably, or eating, I'm not saying you can't have pizza, but just maybe their old lifestyle, that's probably not going to be a good idea. So I realized that these are lifelong changes that I make, and maintenance, and it doesn't sound like fun, but on the other hand, it's a better idea than you'll see people have complete, relapse.
Right. So, and you have to partake in it. And truly, for good health, you really have to start with your diet. And I think that's, pretty much an important point that you're putting out there, because I think people underestimate the power of their food, and they really can't. That's where it has to start.
We'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Botanical medicines are an important part of the integrative Lyme disease program. Biocidin from Biobotanical Research is a professional-strength, broad-based formula that has been extensively researched for effectiveness as nutritional support in Lyme and co-infections. Ask your practitioner about Biocidin LSF and visit biocidin.com for more information. Allotest. Did you know that what you eat affects the way you feel? One simple test can tell you which foods to eat and which ones to avoid. Many people underestimate the power of simple changes. Allotest Medical Laboratory has provided food allergy and sensitivity testing services for over 38 years. Change your diet, change your life. The first step, Allotest. Visit www.foodallergy.com. Master Supplements specializes in probiotics, enzymes, and fiber that all support digestive and immune health. Their products provide results that you can feel working with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Their staff is available to help you decide which products and programs are right for you. Visit master-supplements.com or call 800-926-2961 for more info.
You know, I was reading through lots of your blogging, and you tackle so much, and I don't know how you have your hands in so many places. Now, were you a journalist? Did you actually go to school to be a journalist?
No, I went to Indiana University and a music major, so my degrees are all music related. So it's hilarious, and not in journalism at all. I was in music and in theater, believe it or not. So I don't know. Really with the site, I had blogged before that, but and I have worked. I ran you mentioned in there the raw food retreats. So back,
right.
I don't have them anymore, but for the earlier 2000s up till I guess 2010, which feels like that was yesterday, but now it's 8 years ago, I was doing raw food retreats on the beach. And so funny that for that entire time I was doing it, I didn't even know that I had, Lyme then, or have a clue, although I knew something was obviously was wrong. I had, when I started Health Nut News, besides doing a little bit of blogging with, like for my the retreats, sending out a newsletter or whatever for all the retreats I was having, we'd have speakers from around the world, pretty well-known speakers and chefs, which I realized they became the real stars of the show. People love the chefs, especially near the end as the chef shows became more popular. But yeah, besides that, when I started the site, I had no experience in it. So it's very, very funny. No experience beyond my, I guess, supposed writing classes, basic writing classes, or English or creative writing in college, which is totally different. And yeah, I've been very fortunate. A lot of people think that, Joe, because we're both in natural health, and he's got one of the biggest health sites that Dr. Mercola, whatever you want to call him, but that he promoted me, but actually he's really into the whole nepotism thing. So he didn't promote me at all. And people will ask how I did it. And I've never taken a marketing class or anything, but it was just truly, I think, watching the whole process, but also working a lot of hours, which I don't really recommend. I think that now I'm learning to delegate things out more, which has made things so much easier. But that is a key. And learning to take breaks, which I'm learning to do better. But I admit that I was kind of raised with this really strict work ethic from an early age, and working even at 12 and 13, babysitting for all the neighborhood kids and all that, into starting a job probably 14, 15. But we reach over 2 million individual readers a month. And so I think it's just that you have to have a balance, but also the drive. And I think that I also that things went well because it was my passion. And right. I don't really always say that writing, I have an editor now. That was another thing. Hiring an editor helped, because initially I didn't, and it definitely showed in the work. But we do keep our stories rather short, but some of them, it depends on what the subject is. But for me, I'm kind of a researcher, more of an investigative journalist at heart, and like to break stories and get things out there. We have a new thing we just said where we break the news before the news breaks the news, because somebody asked me to sum it up and I didn't know how, because they just said, how did you know about we have the right now in Florida, it's really a crisis. And we're on the other coast, thank goodness, on the East Coast, but especially Southwest Florida is being really affected by the toxic blue-green algae and the red tide that they say is caused, in the news, they're even saying, by the sugar industry and diverting the water from Lake Okeechobee and all this other terrible stuff. But we were reporting on it before the local news stations may have started. But I think it's just keeping your ear to the ground. And honestly, some of the best stories we get are from our readers who send them in. So
okay, I have to ask then. Okay.
Sure.
Where did you find the story about the two men that break out of their nursing home to attend the heavy metal concert? Where could you find that?
That's funny that you ask. I have a group on Facebook, and I'm not trying to plug it. I didn't even name it, but it's grown to about 50,000 since August of last year. So we got like 50,000 people on there, and it is kind of dedicated to the holistic doctors who have died. I hope is that okay to mention?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So of all things in that group, it's interesting because we have NDR, we'll say not doctor related stories. And again, that came from a reader, and they posted it in there. Somebody just said, look, this isn't doctor related, but so I just saw that, and it caught my eye just because I love a feel good story. We have so many things, as you know, for anybody, if we got rid of cable, but still, even if you just open a computer or your phone, let alone turn on the news, you'll see so many sad negative news. And some of it's really important, of course, that we get that out. So I feel that we can change, like get the stories out about what's happening in Florida, and then we can fix it and change things for the better and expose what's happening. But I just thought that was a funny story, and it really, and yeah, we always fact check, and because I didn't know the site that it came from, and I started investigating and looked. So yeah, on that one it was, and we'll fully admit that. I think that just like musicians will say, okay, these are my influencers, and even the Beatles are like, okay, you know, they didn't just I saw an interview with some of them the other day. It was an old interview, and they're saying these were my influences of where I got my style or whatever. So occasionally, yes, we will see a story already out there and then rewrite it and always credit the original source. But I just thought it was so cool. I can't say that I broke that news at all, but I love a feel good story like that other people will enjoy. And I was sad to see that it's 75,000 people attend this concert in Germany. And it was sad to see that they did find them, I guess, there, which might be tough when you have 75,000 people, and they had to go home. I was like,
oh, that's not right.
But I guess it was a long time before they were discovered. So, you know, and that's awesome that they're with these metal bands, and even ones because a lot of them are German, and I don't know that much metal music, but Danzig, who I think is Glenn Danzig. So, I mean, I was like, gosh, I knew him back when I was in high school. I mean, I didn't know him personally, but knew the music. And so I thought that was neat, and maybe because of my own being a musician, though I don't share much of my music. I don't know if I've shared very little of my music, I should say, online. I probably should, but I just really appreciated that. Like I would love for that to be, you know, me, that if I'm God forbid ever in a nursing home or something, that I can sneak out and go to a rock concert.
That's the best. That brought a smile to my face. What brings a smile to your face? What do you find that makes you most happiest?
Well, I think there's so many things. I mean, there are many things that come to mind. And I mean, as far as like spending time with family, or getting out in nature, and all those, and all that which is so important, and in making people happy. But also, as far as what I do for my job, I think when it started years ago with the health retreats that I did, and we had this place we rented on the beach, so it was a great location. But I was doing it on I suppose a smaller scale back then, was to be able to help people. I mean, I have this drive, and I'm not sure it started at a young age. I formed a peace fellowship for the, you know, like the young teens of our community, and doing a lot of different, and leading some marches, and doing activism work, I guess, while I was still underage, was maybe not super normal. But I found out that my birth mother, who I didn't know until I was till I was 20, and I found her through a book she'd written about giving me for adoption. I found out that was kind of her drive too. So I guess what in this lifetime, what makes me happiest, besides of course family, friends, love getting outdoors, doing outdoor stuff. And I always need to remember that balance and do more of that and not let work dominate things. But I think that I love being able to bring information to the people, like happy stories like that, but also whether it's exposing what's happening with the big sugar industry, because really we all probably need to eat less. I know sugar is still a weakness for me, but I do my best not to eat it. But we have the big sugar industry here. That's even now mainstream is finally catching up and saying that's a part of the devastation here with the waters. And it's all along the Gulf states. It's not just Florida. It's all the way to Texas and probably Mexico. But I think it's bringing information to the people and being able to educate the people in doing research and seeing what folks like and being able to help them. We can't always answer the personal emails that we try. I have someone that works full time just to help keep up with the emails that come in. And I used to be able to answer every single one, which I learned that wasn't going to be good for my health. If I couldn't help anybody else if I wasn't healthy. So, but I'd love to help people on an individual basis, like with the raw food retreats or answering those emails, but also on a bigger scale where I can help educate them on things that they don't know, like maybe about implants. And if they want to think twice about getting saline implants or dental implants and alternatives to that, or whatever the story may be. And especially really hard investigative journalism that probably I get a few enemies when I'm doing stories on, like I covered it heavily, no pun intended, the last 4 years on mosquito spraying, which isn't just here in Florida, but around the country. So they're using naled or malathion, which are both known, not just neurotoxins, but poison that they're spraying aerially in small amounts over a good percentage of the country, from California all the way to Florida and states in between, like Texas. So I know that might sound kind of crazy that's what brings a smile to my face, is to let people know about this. But I guess it's about justice. I'm a Libra and a sign of the scales. So when people ask, even before I had the website, okay, why are you so committed to my first job right out of high school? I graduated 17 before I started college, and I'll make this short, but was working as a news and weather girl. I was only 17 years old, and they sent me to never told this story, but they sent me to the
Thank you for breaking it with me. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Well, they sent me to the city council and the city commissioners meetings and all this kind of stuff. So I was 17 years old, and I think this was a pretty, I don't say conservative is the word, but just, happy radio station. You're supposed to report on, hey, here's the weather and here's a few local stories and probably happy things. I don't even know if that would be too controversial, like guys going to metal concerts, escape in the nursing home. That would be fun, but it's definitely supposed to keep it kind of happy and upbeat. And I began to uncover what looked to be systematic corruption within the system of the city commission in the city I lived in. And they were like, oh my gosh, what is she doing? Well, I could get away with it because I was a teenage kid, and they're just like, what does this blonde kid that's like 17 go into these meetings? And I had my tape recorder, which I had permission. And I wouldn't do private conversations, but just the meetings, and no one was even recording them. And anyway, I kind of uncovered the system of corruption, and they freaked out, and I lost my job over the whole thing. And my parents were like, what are you doing? Like, oh, they were proud of me, but they're just like, oh my gosh, like it was. Actually, the owner was out of town, so I was doing the news, and it was live. It's a radio. So I said, here's the latest story. And it wasn't like, oh, we have, something coming over the Eastern Front with the weather. And I'm like, we found corruption within the system. And I'm doing this whole thing. And they're just like, oh my gosh, like you're going to get us killed or something. So,
oh my God, she needs to have time out. This girl has to have time out. She's really getting to the root of it. So this is basically the way you were born. You are a striver to get the information out. You like to be in the hub. You want to you're like just spreading this information, but it's on so many levels. I don't know how you tackle it all. It's so much.
I am. That's why I do my best to. And I was supposed to take a vacation this month. A place in Baja, Mexico, North Baja, invited me to go there. It's Patrick Vickers and the Gerson Therapy group, and they do Gerson therapies for a week on the ocean. And I am going to go. I promised them, but it was because of just different things that I was work obligations that I didn't, but I am going to go. But yeah, I was invited for free to go for the week, and then of course promote it to my audience and let them know about this great place. But yeah, I admit that I am not. I realize that I'm not great. I think they did some like assessment years ago when we were in high school, and it said that I enjoy stress, and I'm like, well, that's not good. But I think on the other hand, no, that even if there are people who love what they do and they enjoy what they do, that you have to take breaks and vacations, even if they're forced. And I saw that a few of my friends that had back in January had done a New Year's resolution. And some people say, I want to work more, I want to do this. But my one friend who was like that says, I want to take more vacations with my wife. I'm going to force myself to do so. And he was such a healthy eater. He's like, I'm going to force myself to have a beer once in a while and have a piece of cake at the birthday party. And I'm like, wow, you know what? That is awesome. It's like kind of the opposite of your normal New Year's resolution. So,
if you had to make a resolution, because you do work an awful lot, you're going to have to make this very, very big resolution here in front of a lot of listeners. What is going to be your resolution over the next 6 months?
Well, I know you and I were talking before we had gone on live about losing my father suddenly. And he was doing what he loved, hang gliding, thousands of feet in the sky. He would be 81 this month. And he passed over, we believe, a heart attack, the coroner says, while he was flying. So he was doing what he loved. In our last conversation, which had been a few days before on Father's Day, so he went right after Father's Day, he said, Erin, when we talked on that day, and they've come down and stayed here 4 months at a time with us, but we were not in the same, he was in Chicago and I was here in Florida. And he said, I think the words echo through my mind that he had said to me on our last conversation, and I have not said this to anyone either, but that he said, have more fun. And, because he always knew he was a hard worker, but he did have his balance doing the things he loved, like hang gliding for 41 years of his almost 81 years. And he said, have more fun and take breaks, just have some fun, So I think that is a big part of it, is to have more fun and to take breaks. And because I do think that there is besides the eating component, there is that emotional component too, which I've learned, especially from Lee Cowden, with Lyme. And I mean, he's written books about it. He's had conferences about it, and he has pretty famous Lyme doctor. So, and just a good doctor and a good person in general. And, so if we take that time off emotionally, take that time off and enjoy ourselves, and it's all about positive and good emotions, I think that does help. And it doesn't mean at all that we know that Lyme obviously isn't in our head, unless it's affecting our brain, then you could say it in that capacity. But I do think that as I'm sure that maybe it's preaching to the choir here, but that people have to remember to slow down, and you can't you got to put your oxygen mask on first, and take the time out to enjoy yourself. And always remember, that's the other thing I always say, is for those going through the struggle, whether they've kind of gone back a few steps or they're just currently going through it, is to remember that there's always light at the end of the tunnel. And the very first thing that you said about what puts a smile on my face too, is also being able to kind of entertain people, which I like to do, we need to do more of, and to make them laugh. And so we've done a few comedy skits for the site, but I always then get into the serious subjects. But I think that for everyone, that it's good advice, even though it may sound like preaching to the choir, to laugh more and enjoy those moments. It's the little moments, and that we don't realize are the important ones, like maybe a last conversation you have with a relative that goes suddenly, and that you cherish those things, because you never know when they're going to be gone.
I have a big, big, big fat smile on my face, and of course this is audio only, and I can only tell you that you are absolutely 100% right. When you talk about life, it has to be a balance. And when you're dealing with something like Lyme, whether it is a short infection or a prolonged infection, especially with the prolonged infection, people have to give themselves a break. And just as it happened with you, I can't wait till I feel better. Well, it is a process, and no one is going to get better overnight. And I remember feeling like it was Groundhog Day. Every day I got up and it was the same as the day previously. So it's all about that realization, that balance, and kind of trying to stay on course as best as you can. So this has been a wonderful experience, because this is someone, as I'm speaking to the listeners now, this is someone who has shown you all that she has come from the very, very, very serious infection with Lyme, processing it, getting herself together, becoming extremely successful, very well known, and a person who loves life and who wants to help people. And she's just like me. She wants to make people laugh. And I'm going to tell you, laughter heals. A good belly laugh is probably one of the best things you can do for yourself. And hopefully you can do it on a daily basis. Try not to be too serious. Try not to take yourself too seriously. And I want to thank you for spending some time with us and giving us, all this information just about you, because people may know you as the health nut, but they may not know you. And I think this was a great, great interview, because you really got down to really that person that you are. And you should be very proud of yourself for not only sharing, but for everything that you've done and for the things that you'll continue to do in the future. Erin, it's been my pleasure. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Cindy. No, it's mine too. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I loved it. Thank you.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. So all you out there who have just listened to another episode of Living with Lyme, I want to tell you that you have been listening to Erin Elizabeth. You can find her at healthnutnews.com. You may want to follow her. Her stories are unbelievable. She's probably better at writing the stories than the major journalists out there, and she covers so many topics that can help us. And for those of you that are listening, you may also look up Pursue Wellness, pursuewellness.us. It is an integrative site to help you. Myself and my daughter Kara are practicing integrative health to help you with chronic illness. So please look us up, see if we can help you in any way. And for those who have not subscribed to the podcast, go ahead and go to www.livingwithlyme.us. Click on the connect button, click here, become part of our listening community so you don't miss a thing, because of course we're always have more information out there, more things to learn, and to give you the support that you need. I want to thank you all. Have a great day for all you listeners out there, and be well. Bye now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Living with Lyme. We'd like to take another moment to thank our sponsors. Botanical medicines are an important part of an integrative Lyme disease program. Biocidin from Biobotanical Research is a professional strength, broad spectrum formula that has been extensively researched for effectiveness as a nutritional support in Lyme and co-infections. University studies have shown that this combination of plant medicines is also effective on biofilms that may be hampering treatment, as well as providing broadly acting herbal support. The liposomal form of biocidin, called biocidin LSF, is used by Lyme literate physicians such as Dr. Richard Horowitz and Dr. Jill Carnahan. Ask your practitioner about biocidin LSF and visit biocidin.com for more information. Allotest. Did you know that what you eat affects the way you feel? One simple test can tell you which foods to eat and which ones to avoid. Many people underestimate the power of simple changes. Allotest Medical Laboratory has provided food allergy and sensitivity testing services for over 38 years. Allotest Medical Laboratory offers allergy testing for inhalants, molds, chemicals, and foods, as well as tests for food sensitivities, candida overgrowth, celiac disease, and autoimmune disorders. Talk to your doctor today. Take the first step. Allotest. Visit www.foodallergy.com. Master Supplements. Does living with Lyme ever get overwhelming and finding the right support seem difficult? Well, Master Supplements can help. Master Supplements specializes in probiotics, enzymes, and fiber that help support digestive and immune health during and after antibiotics. Master Supplements products provide results that you can feel working with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Their staff is available to help you decide which products and programs are right for you. Master Supplements is dedicated to science-based products with the highest standards of quality control. Visit master-supplements.com for more information or call and talk to a team member at 800-926-2961. That's master-supplements.com or 800-926-2961. Thanks so much again for listening to Living with Lyme. We'd like to remind you that if you have not done so already, please subscribe to the podcast. You can visit our website at livingwithlyme.us so you make sure you don't miss any episodes. Until next time, thank you so much for listening, and we'll be back soon with a new episode.